You are now watching the Amazin Mets pregame show with your hosts, Rob and CP.
Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets!
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the Amazin Mets pregame show with my boy CP and myself. Sorry that I haven't been as active over the last couple of days. The moving process has been just shit. So we all know how that goes, but my boy CP was holding it down for me, and I do appreciate that. So shout out to him and everybody in the chat right now and in the stream, ready for Mets versus Cubs. Chris, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. I apologize about the little glare here. I'm sorry about that, but nonetheless, I'm all over the place today. Got a little glare, forgot my microphone. Anyways, I hope everyone can hear me all right. As always, hit that thumbs up. Always great to be back watching New York Mets baseball. Obviously, I went live for the pregame back, I believe, on Friday when the series kicked off. You weren't there, Rob. Maybe did a little bit of a different setup. Disappointing series. I'm sure we'll get into it. And then before we get into this Cubs series, but nonetheless, I appreciate everyone in the chat. Salute to everybody. Let's go Mets.
Absolutely. And yeah, it was a disappointing series against a team that I think we are better than. They just played better, and the Mets didn't play the way they should have played. And yesterday, let's be honest, we should have got swept. The way we played in that series was just not the way we've seen the Mets play over the last 2.5 weeks. And it's unfortunate, but somehow they figured out they got the win. They almost blew a great performance by Jose Quintana, but Mark Vientos, everybody knew that was going to happen, right? I think everybody was ready for Mark Vientos to hit that home run to dead center, but we got the W. That's what counts. We salvaged the series. But now we're facing a Cubs team, Chris, that is a very good team. They're 17-11. I believe they're tied or a game ahead or a game back of the Brewers. And they're a team that if you make mistakes, they will pounce on you, as Jameson Taillon is on the mound for the Cubs today with our Luis Severino. So what is your feeling about this series after the Cardinals series at this moment before the game starts in about an hour?
Yeah, first of all, salute to Mark Vientos. I think we got to call him out and just say congrats, first of all, and just salute to him because that's a true testament of resiliency right there. Obviously, we're thinking that he was going to get that opportunity coming out of spring training, even though he had a less than stellar spring training, gets sent down in lieu of the JD Martinez signing. Clearly disappointed, frustrated, and the first opportunity he gets, he literally hits home in a big way, like literally and figuratively. So it was a disappointing series. A lot of people in here, I'm sure we'll talk about it. Adrian Hauser, it's not good. It's not good. We'll talk about him, I'm sure. But, I'm actually kind of confident still heading into this Cubs series. And the Cubs are not a team to take lightly. They're always pesky. It's a 4-game set. And their starting pitchers, especially the first 3 games, are pretty damn good. They're having great seasons and great starts to their season. So, yeah, man, I'm feeling confident. I will say that. Really good job to get the comeback win in the last game of the Cardinals series. I do think that the offense, well, everything combined, like we have Luis Severino on the mound tonight, obviously struggled with walks last couple outings. I believe the last outing he had was perfect through 5 or through 4, gets into the 5th inning, lets up a little bit, but the walks was 0 in that outing compared to the previous outings before, 4 walks, 3 walks, 2 walks. So I think that the thing that I'm looking forward to is the pitching matchups in this series and how the New York Mets starters go out there and how do they look? Are they able to dominate the strike zone? Are they able to find the strike zone? I think that this series in particular against a pretty sneaky good Cubs team, you see 17-11, the starting pitching is going to have to hold up. And I got confidence in Luis Severino. I know a couple people in this chat have confidence in Luis Severino. I'm sure you do as well, Rob. So let's start the tone early and often with this series. And like I said, it should be fun. The pitching matchups are really what I'm looking for, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I actually think yesterday was important to salvage that series. I think that can bring momentum into this series. Again, you're as good as your next day's starting pitcher, as everybody likes to say. But I do think that it was important for them to win yesterday, not only because, obviously the win matters, but, I think they went into that series thinking that they were the better team, and it didn't end up like that. And I think yesterday's game was very important, and especially as Vientos came through, you seen the frustration that spewed out of him, running the bases and coming and stepping on home plate. All that anger that he had, probably from internally with the organization and fans that were down on him, he finally let it out. And it's good for Vientos. He's in the starting lineup tonight, as you see, batting seventh in the lineup today. But yeah, look, the Cubs are a sneaky good team. Not sneaky where everybody should be shocked that they're good. It's just that they got a lot of, Pete Crow Armstrong. Obviously, we all know about him, former Mets prospect. He's a dangerous hitter. He's batting ninth tonight. I'm a little worried about this series, but I'm still confident. And I agree with you that I think the Mets are better, especially with JD Martinez here. I think it's going to just make it better. Obviously Marte on, the bereavement list. But it gives opportunity for Mark Vientos, right? You keep Taylor and Bader in the lineup, which we've been clamoring for a while. I mean, it's impossible if Marte comes back. You could play Taylor and Bader because then who are you going to take out? But with JD Martinez as the DH. But I don't know. I like this lineup. I know it sucks missing out on Marte, and I think that hurt the team. But I do think that Lindor batting second, I like that a little bit. I think that puts him in a situation where he's got the protection of Alonso and Martinez for that matter. And if Nimmo can get on base, and Lindor has been looking a little bit better. I mean, he's like a hit or miss right now, but I feel like it's getting warmer. It's almost the end of April. I think he'll be okay. What are your concerns if it's this lineup? Besides the pitching, do you like this lineup tonight? I know it's missing Marte, but what are your concerns about this lineup right now?
This lineup's fantastic. I don't have any concerns about this lineup. And JD Martinez had a hell of a series. He literally the first game just made a statement there, notching a couple base hits. Obviously, the score didn't hold up how he wanted to, but he's an immediate impact. And to me, this lineup right here, and everybody in the chat can sort of chime in here because I think that this is really important to sort of notice and sort of just state that this is an adaptation, an adaptation type lineup, and that Carlos Mendoza deserves the credit for this type of lineup. Because what's one thing that you notice about this lineup right now? Who's playing third base? And what type of pitcher do we have up on the mound for the Cubs? A right-handed pitcher. He's playing the hot hand, so to speak. Brett Beatty's been struggling. Mark Vientos gets the nod, righty versus righty. And I know, I'm not sure what your stance is on this, but a lot of people have been talking about just get away from forcing the pitching matchups. Like, you don't always have to play the lefty versus the righty. Like, yes, I understand there's a whole bunch of sabermetrics, a whole bunch of statistics that could probably even go beyond our heads in terms of understanding as to why they would make that type of decision. But it makes sense to just roll with the hot hand. And I think that you are seeing an adaptive Carlos Mendoza making these lineups day in and day out. He realizes that he has to, like yesterday, what the consistency of this lineup has been isn't necessarily what's going to work tomorrow as it did yesterday, right? So I think that's the most important part. And obviously you want to have some consistency, you want to build that, but I still think with the personnel in this lineup, there's still a lot to figure out until Carlos Mendoza hits the sweet spot, right? Like, you got JD Martinez. He can either bat 4 or 5. Lindor can bat 3 or 2. I like him in 2 hole as well. So that's why I love this lineup. I think that maybe I would swap Jeff McNeil and Tyrone Taylor. Shout out to Carson from the Mets Weekly Pod. Had a great discussion. Threw up that tweet as well. I think the only gripe with this lineup is I would switch them. But nonetheless, that's just me nitpicking. I love Tomas Nido there at catcher. In terms of just being that defensive presence, right? And he actually swung a decent bat in the Cardinals series. So shout out to Tomas Nido getting a couple hard hits. I know he was robbed on one of his hits, but nonetheless, I love this lineup. For me, I'm not concerned about this lineup at all, to answer your question. I'm just concerned about the pitching aspect in this series. I think that this lineup right here will produce runs. And we are going to figure that out. And we're going to give everybody a chance to chime in on that because, Rob, we're going live today for the game, during the game. Everybody in the chat, I hope you all are ready to hear us for the next 2 to 3 hours because we actually will be doing it in-game live. So shout out to everybody in the chat that's supporting. It should be fun. But yeah, Rob, do you have any concerns with this lineup? Because I don't on paper.
No, I mean, even prior to Martinez, I still feel like this lineup has a lot to show for. Like I said, I always thought Tyrone Taylor was going to be a big addition to this team. I said it when they traded for him with Hauser. I said Tyrone Taylor is the big part of this piece, not Adrian Hauser. Even though Adrian Hauser is, right now not doing well, I think the veteran, and you heard David Stearns today in his press conference, he has confidence in him because he has a track record. Hauser has a track record. So before everybody wants to throw the book on Hauser, remember, this guy has a track record. He had a bad outing against the Cardinals. He's not supposed to, be excellent against the Dodgers and the Braves. He will beat the bad teams and the mediocre teams to like average teams. He will keep you in the ball game. That's the type of pitcher he is. If the Mets had a full healthy rotation, if Kodai Senga was there, nobody would be complaining about Hauser as a fifth starter. But because everybody got pushed up because of the Kodai Senga injury, everybody's like, oh my God, Hauser sucks. Hauser's this guy. Let's bring him Christian Scott, Hamill, Vazel, everybody except Hauser. Yet they're not going to bring those young kids up. Stearns even brought it up. He's not going to force these guys to come up because it's not really an emergency situation. If you're going to remove Hauser, expect McGill or Peterson or Lucchesi to come into that rotation. And there's a pretty good chance that they're not going to be much better than Adrian Hauser. That's just a fact. It's possible.
I mean,
we don't know because McGill.
That's a hard sell, though.
Hauser's
not. He's got like what, a 7 ERA, 8 ERA now.
Right now, I agree. Like I said, listen. Would I put Hauser in the bullpen? Probably. I would give McGill or Peterson or Lucchesi the chance because I don't think the young kids are going to come up because it really does not make sense at this point. Stearns laid it out for us in that press conference. But I want to go back to what you said, bringing up with Mendoza with the lineup. Yesterday was a master class from Carlos Mendoza. He was looking in the book, looking at the analytics, looking at everything that I probably did pre-game, setting up for when they got to take out Quintana, and he allowed the veteran to stay in the ball game for that final out. You know how excited I was that he was able to keep him in that ball game? I love the fact that he went to the veteran and says, listen, everything says what we talked about, what we planned before the game. This is when I'm going to take you out pitch-wise, how many pitches you're throwing. And, he went very deep, right? The longest outing of the Mets this year of a Mets starter. That was masterclass right there. Because Mendoza, if he was a puppet manager, like everybody talks about, like Aaron Boone is a puppet manager, and there's a lot of puppet managers in baseball right now, shows you that Mendoza has a book, has a plan prior to the game, but he makes the final decision in game. And that's important to realize. And yesterday showed that. And I think it showed a lot of confidence with our manager. And it showed a lot of confidence in a veteran pitcher that you should have confidence in Jose Quintana. So shout out to Mendoza. And listen, the lineup, I'm sorry, I went way off course there, but the lineup.
No, you're good. You needed to call it out because we were talking about it, Rob. Remember when I said whoever throws beyond 6 innings deserves a cookie or something from whoever is going to be giving it out other than Jose Buto, because he's done that a couple times already. And it was Jose Quintana. So definitely, absolutely. Not only shout out to Carlos Mendoza for making that sort of decision to stick with him, but also shout out to the man who did it in Jose Quintana. Much needed.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I do like the lineup, as I completely went off base, but I just thought I had to say that since you brought up Mendoza before that. The lineup's fine. Like, I like this lineup. I like the Lindor bat in second. I don't know if Marte wasn't around, Lindor is perfect in that 2-hole. I think it would help him tremendously working in the 2-hole. I would have switched McNeil over Taylor, 5-6. I would have pushed Vientos up a little bit more, but I don't think they're trying to put too much pressure on Vientos. He's, since he came up, what does he have? 3-4 hits already in a little bit of time. So we'll see. Again, Beatty was hot for 2 weeks, and then he's nowhere to be found hitting the ball to second base again. So let's not go overly crazy about Vientos performing well right now offensively, because we've seen it before, right? And we both said hold up on Brett Beatty, because a lot of the numbers show and the analytics show he's not as good as his numbers are because of the hard hit rate and just the everything that you need to know about advanced analytics with Brett Beatty. He's a problem right now. And look, like he says, the righty on the mound, Vientos usually doesn't play against righties. They get one with the quote-unquote hot hand, as you said, and I like that. I'm sick and tired of, oh, well, the matchup's this, even though the guy can be batting 700 over the last 3-4 games, and yet they're going to do matchups instead of the hot hand. The hot hand always should have precedence. Well, I can't even say it anymore. Precedence over the matchups, in my opinion. I think that's a better way to manage. It just shows that you actually have a little bit of a feel of the game, and I think Mendoza has that, and I think David Stearns is allowing him to go with the hot hand over matchup, and I love it.
I do too. Rob, I think Joel is saying that you look like a pilot in your new setup, which looks great, by the way. Your setup's phenomenal. It's elite. It looks very comfy.
It's not even fully set up. I'm on my recliner right now. I have to move everything together. My computer chair is still somewhere in this apartment that I have to unwrap, I guess. But but I got my sofa ready, and I'm kind of like makeshift. And like if you look at the other side of the camera, you think an explosion happened. But hey, what you gotta do.
Yeah. I don't doubt it. I know the moving process all too well. It's tough. But Brandon Nimmo, his average is finally over 200. I saw some Brandon Nimmo comments in the chat as well. Clap it up for Brandon Nimmo. Listen, I seriously don't think that this lineup has hit its stride yet. I think that what we see on paper is not even close to the production that we can be seeing with this lineup. So there's a lot more left to give. But albeit, right, just to sum up the first, 27 games here, like it was a tough stretch. It was a brutal stretch, good competition, and still is with the Cubs coming up. And the Mets have fared decently well, right? So hopefully that trend continues. I agree with you. The way that Carlos Mendoza is managing right now really is a way that we really haven't seen the Mets go about making decisions the last couple of years. And I think that's not only a testament to Carlos Mendoza, right? Because I'm sure completely now that he has autonomous control of the day-to-day operations, the lineup, etc. But also David Stearns, right, bringing in most likely a new philosophy, and the one being like, hey, Carlos Mendoza, I don't like matchups, but you do you. You like matchups, you go roll with it. And I think that that's what really is the sort of culture change. Can we just call it a culture change at this point? Because you got new leadership top to bottom, right? You got David Stearns, and you got a lot more advanced analytics people in the advanced analytics department, but you also got a manager. And Rob, I know you've said this multiple times. A lot of people, when we were going through the manager hiring process and talking about it, everyone's like, managers don't matter. Managers don't matter. And honestly, I was kind of on that train too. I'm going to hold myself accountable and say, like, listen, in today's modern baseball, how many decisions are actually being made by the manager? And obviously, we don't know that as fans just speaking right here, but it seems like a complete 180 culture change under Carlos Mendoza, the guy that pulls guys into his office and talks to them one-on-one about whatever they want to talk about, guys that he sees every single day when he gets to the ballpark. It's a testament to everybody top to bottom, Stearns all the way down to Mendoza, and now the players too. So yeah, I agree with you. Not worried about this lineup. JD Martinez is going to help Pete Alonso out a lot. Congrats to Pete Alonso also, by the way, for hitting his 200th career home run. Major feat, major accomplishment. So congrats to him. And like I said, you got Brandon Nimmo batting 202. Francisco Lindor is batting 202 as well. Hasn't hit his stride yet. And the Mets are still being competitive. They're getting major contributions from guys that, honestly, I had no confidence in going into the season, like Harrison Bader, even Tomas Nido most recently. Tyrone Taylor, who I was a fan of, but I never thought was going to be an everyday type starter. I never thought I would be clamoring for Tyrone Taylor to be starting every day. He's been swinging a lights out bat. So it's all in all, yes, I understand we're coming off of a series loss, but I'm happy because I see things in this team, positive things that we can build off of. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? If I would have told Met fans opening day, the Mets would be around 500, either if they're a game under or a game over 500 by the end of April, I think almost 99% of Met fans would have signed on the dotted line for that, considering that there was a lot of negative vibes going around this team, even though after the JD Martinez signing, there was a little bit more positivity. But going like just look at the standings right now. Besides the Braves, the Phillies, the Dodgers, the Brewers, and I guess the Cubs, the Mets are right in the mix, right in that second, third wild card, right below the third wild card mark, right where I thought they would be. And May's a tough month. You got a lot of Phillies, a lot of Braves. You got the Rays. You got a lot of good teams in May, so it's not going to get easy. Even though I think the Mets in April did fairly well, but I wanted to bring up what Stern says, and I thought it was interesting that he puts the seasons in 40 to 45 game like intervals, like a quarter of the season, 4 quarters of a season, right? When you get the 40 plus around 40, 42, 43 games, that's the way he looks at it. 40, 80, 120, 160, right? He looks at it that way, even though there's 162, but you understand the point what I'm talking about. I like the fact that he evaluates a team after every quarter of the season. So when it gets to 40, 45, between 40 and 45 games, that's when the evaluation process happens. And that is around the middle of May when that happens. So that tells me that when we get to the middle of May, Chris, guess what? There might be changes. Like if Hauser's still, shit in the bed, guess what? He's going to make a move. Now, we might not all agree on the move he might make to replace Hauser, but he will do it. That includes the bullpen. That includes the lineup. So if Beatty's not doing well, there's a pretty good chance, and Vientos is doing well, pretty good chance that Beatty ends up in AAA and Vientos stays up. Because remember, there's got to be a roster move when Marte comes back, tomorrow? So I think it's either tomorrow or Wednesday. So I don't think Vientos is going to be sent down, but Stearns hasn't made that decision yet. But I do like that 40, that intervals of evaluating the team every 40 plus games or so.
Or you can do, I'm not saying I don't want to out the Mets here because it would be a great play to just not send Beatty down to AAA and just IL him if he's not right. And you can use that excuse to give him some time and just IL him and then just see what you have in Mark Vientos. Like I said, I'm not making an excuse for Brett Baty that he's injured, but he hasn't been doing so well ever since the whole injury went down, missed a couple of games, etc. But nonetheless, what do you think about that potentially?
I hope it's an injury with Beatty because I really want him to do well. Look, the best thing for the Mets is Vientos and Beatty perform well because that gives the Mets options when it comes down later in the season where they might have to make a decision on one of those guys, and one of those guys might actually be in a package. You just never know anymore. I know we're thinking far down, but the more players that are performing well and the less roster spots that are available benefits the Mets greatly if they're still in the mix come trade deadline. I know that's a long way away, but you got to start talking about. I mean, we're already 29 games into the season or 28 games into the season. So, it's coming quick. The April's almost over. We got 1 day left until April's over, and we're in May already. And, May is usually a month where the Mets can really stay in this mix or really do a good job or fall back far enough where it's like, here we go. And now we didn't even get to June yet. So, I think this team's going to be fine. And if we end up around, we're going to end up around 500 somewhere, either above, right at it, or below, obviously, with, 2 games left until April's over. So what is your take on the April, the Mets in April, the first month of the season? Right now, are you I wouldn't say satisfied, but are you happy with where they are, or did you want to see more?
Yeah, and shout out to D in the chat too. When I said IL Beatty, I didn't actually see your comment there, but now I'm scrolling up to see it. And yeah, spot on by you. Sorry not to steal your take or anything, but nonetheless, yeah, I'm satisfied. And just to go back real quickly to what you talked about with Stearns evaluating every 40 or 45 games or so, that's like, do you notice how I just said before we even got into that topic that Carlos Mendoza is managing in a way where things change? What worked yesterday might not work today, which might not work tomorrow. Like It's like a philosophy kind of thing. So it makes perfect sense that David Stearns would come out and say that, because I've said all along, even before the season started, the roster you see on opening day is not the roster you're going to see come middle of May, like you said. It's not going to be the roster you see post All-Star break, which is not going to be the roster you see at the end of the season. And we've seen this with the countless of DFAs, the send downs, the call ups, the IL stints. We've seen all of that already into effect, and we're only here on April 29th talking about it. But yes, absolutely, I am satisfied with where the Mets are at right now. Like I said, I'm hungry for more. I'm always hungry for more, because 14 and 13, I still think that we could have sneaked a couple more games in there and we could have a little bit of a better record. But all things considered, starting off 0-5, offense being absolutely abysmal, guys not hitting their strides like the top two guys in this lineup right now, and everything else in between, Hauser's crappy starts. I think that 14 and 13 is certainly plausible when you take a look at sort of the competition the Mets have been playing. They've been beating good teams, man. They've taken series from good teams. The Reds, they've taken a series from the Dodgers, the Braves. So, like, it's not that they're incapable of beating bad teams or good teams. Like, they've been doing it all. So, no, I'd take 14 and 13, hungry for more. And I think I would just say the only caution that I would issue to Mets fans and myself is the same thing that I said couple weeks ago. How is this starting rotation going to hold up over the course of 162 games? Who's going to be filling in? If Hauser does somehow, leave the rotation, who fills in? Can they be consistent? Is Jose Buto going to be consistent? That he's, has shown the consistent Jose Buto version of himself that he's shown in his first couple starts. Like, are these guys going to hold up health-wise? That is my main concern, right? So I bring it back on the starting pitching here. I know they've been doing a great job holding it down in the absence of Kodai Senga. That is really, like, if the Mets were to have any sort of like June swoon or just fall off the face of the earth, I really do think that it would start with the starting pitching. So we'll see. I do feel good with where we're at right now, though, Rob. And I think everybody should as well, given the circumstances that I just named.
Absolutely. And, without, Nimmo just finally getting over 200 after the first month of the season, Lindor not hitting stride. Alonso's pretty decent. He's probably been, a little bit more better than most. But, I mean, it's the Tyron Taylors, it's the Baters. It's even DJ Stewart picked it up a little bit during that 12 out of 15 stretch as well. So there's a couple of guys that were really, making this lineup what it was and helping his team win when the big guys were actually struggling. And that's the other thing. We're a game over 500 right now with a lot of our core guys not really up to par yet. If these guys were getting going, we might have 4 or 5 more wins. And we're talking about a Cubs record right now with the Mets. And then everybody would be getting going excited going into May. So, I said this in the offseason. This regular season, this is an 85, 86 game season for us, right? Because those 80 plus games are going to tell us right when it gets to the All-Star break where this team is. Are we going to be buyers? Are we going to be sellers? Because I don't think we're just going to stay pat at all. Either way, it's going to be one way or the other. Now, it might not be big buying splashes, and it might not be, a sell-off. But it might be somewhere in between, but I don't think the Mets are going to be staying pat. I think if they're in the mix within probably 4 games, maybe 5 of a wild card spot, maybe 4 games. I think Stearns is a little more picky with how many games you're going to be out of a wild card. But if we're within reach of a wild card spot, he's going to buy. Like, it's just that simple. He's not going to make a major sell-off when this team has a chance, because you've seen it in years past. That what you got to do. Oops, sorry about that. My phone ringing. It actually, you have to really evaluate at that point. And I said 80 plus games, get to the deadline, see where you are. Right now, it's a good first month. It's a solid first month. I guarantee if you would have polled a lot of Met fans and says the Mets would be 500 at the end of April, people would there would have been a lot more no's than yes, in my opinion. Just the way the fan base is right now. But listen, Chris, we got a 3-game set against the Cubs. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, right before our off day, before we head back on the road, right? Win this series, go into May on a good note, going on the road. And I think that's the important thing. And it starts with Luis Severino tonight. So final thoughts for this game tonight, Taillon Severino, and what do you expect to see from the Mets to have a winning series against the Cubs?
I'm excited. I think this is another test for the Mets here early on this season against a decent squad, right? I think that Luis Severino is going to have to go out there and have himself a ball game. And in a perfect world, like MEZ has been saying in the chat, in a perfect world, the Mets offense comes out and scores first, and they score early and often. But Taillon, good pitcher, having a great season so far. Like I said, the Cubs starters are going in this set. The first three, especially, are pretty damn solid. So it's going to be a grind it out type of series, especially with the at bat. So wouldn't expect any sort of, I guess, run production very early on, although I could be pleasantly surprised and maybe the Mets decide to give their starting pitcher a lead. But I think that's what it's about. Like, get your starting pitchers leads, man. Like, get them leads. You saw in that game in San Francisco with Luis Severino, he was absolutely shoving 0 run support through 4 innings, crumbled. He didn't even really crumble. He gave up 3 runs, I believe, over the course of those 5 innings that he pitched. But, like, it's just that simple to me. I want to see the Mets score earlier and more often, like earlier. And it does matter, right? And going back to the point of someone in the comment section saying that, and Rob, I know you have a very strong opinion about this as well in relation to Pete Alonso's home runs and the time that he hits them, but it was a 6-2 ball game when he hit that 2-run home run, I believe it was against the Cardinals this past weekend.
Yeah.
And that made it 6-4. So if he didn't do that, right, who else would have? To sort of inch their way back into that game. So I think it matters when you score. So, and yeah, MLB saying they don't hit at Citi Field. Listen, we'll see. I'm not going to open that can of worms. I'm not going to open that can of worms. But yes, that does seem to be the trend. They are more of an away hitting ball club. But anyways, I think the City Connects are great. I loved seeing the City Connects. We're going to see them tonight again, I believe. And I'm actually so excited because those jerseys are sweet, man. Those are sweet. And I saw them like actually on the players, and I was like, I can rock with this. And the helmets too.
Yeah, the helmets are awesome. The mounted helmets. Oh yeah. Yeah, you know what's funny? Like I always say, you can look at them in the store, you can put them on. Where we play baseball, but we're not, like professional athletes. When you see it on the players, that's when you really get a look on how good they look. The matted helmets with the Queensbridge and the NY is awesome. The jersey in person looks awesome. The jersey on the players look great. And I love all the cleats that the players wearing. Edwin Diaz has some crazy nice cleats with the City Connects. And you said they're wearing them tonight, which is awesome. I didn't even realize that, or I would have changed the background to a little bit of a purple theme, but that's okay. But yeah, Chris, I agree. Win this series. Do what you got to do. Give the pitchers a fucking lead, please. Like, please. So much better with a lead. Every time they can't make a mistake because they don't have a lead. Right? It's harder to pitch when it's a game where you can't make any mistakes and pray that this offense figures it out in the 6th or 7th inning. Give your starters a lead. It's a lot easier pitching with a lead than not. I mean, I'm not breaking any news here. That's just obvious. So once again, guys, me and Chris are going live in game at around 6:55, right before first pitch, about 5-10 minutes before first pitch. So if you're on my channel, it will redirect you to that stream. So make sure you hit that like button when it redirects you, and come back to us around 6:55, 7 o'clock, and we'll have in-game reactions. I'll have the audio, and hopefully game day doesn't blow up StreamYard like it did last time. But it's looking like the Wi-Fi is pretty good. So this is my first test in my new place. So we'll see. If I end up blowing up the whole apartment, you'll know why. But that's okay. So Chris, I'll see you in about 25 minutes or so. Everybody in the chat, see you in a few. Let's go Mets. Severino, Taillon on the mound. Let's see if the Mets can get some W's at Citi Field. With that said, we'll see you in a little bit, guys. Pre-game out. Have a good day.
See you in a bit. See you guys. LFGM.